Hello po. I'm here to present to you the history of Python. So, history of Python. Python is a widely used, general-purpose, high-level programming language. It has initially designed by Guido van Rossum in 1991 and developed by Python Software Foundation. It was mainly developed for emphasis or on code readability, and its syntax allows programmers to express concepts in fewer lines of codes. In the late 1980s, history was about to be written. It was that time when working on Python started. Soon after that, Guido van Rossum began doing its application-based work in December of 1989 by the Centrum Wiskunde and Informatica, which is situated in Netherlands. It was started firstly as a hobby project because he was looking for an interesting project to keep him occupied during Christmas. The programming language with Python is said to have succeeded in ABS programming language, which had the interfacing with the Amoeba operating system and had the feature of exception handling. He had already helped to create ABS early in his career, and he had seen some uses with ABS, but like most of the features after that, what he did as really very clever. Um, he had taken that syntax of ABC, and some of its good features. It came with a lot of complaints too, so he fixed those issues completely, and he had created a good scripting language which had removed all the flaws. The inspiration for the name came from BBC TV show Monty Python's Flying Circus, as he was a big fan of the TV show, and also he wanted a short, unique, and slightly mysterious name of his invention, and hence he named it Python. He was the benevolent dictator of life, DBFL, until he stepped down from the position as the leader on 12 July 2018 for quit. Sometime he used to work for Google, but currently he is working at Dropbox. The language has finally released in 1991. When it was released, it used a lot fewer codes to express the concepts when he compare it with Java, C++, and C. Its design philosophy was quite good too. Its main objective it is to provide code reliability and advanced developer productivity. When it was released, it had more than enough capability to provide classes with inheritance, several code data types, exception handling, and functions. Python 3.7.3 is the latest version. The Python of the most used version has two Python 2 point times and 3 point times. There's a lot of competition between the two and both of them seem to have quite a number of different fan base for various purposes such as developing, scripting generation, and software testing. This language is utilized use due to its elegance and simplicity. Top technology organization like Dropbox, Google, Quora, Mozilla, Hewlett Packard, Qualcomm, IBM, and Cisco have implemented Python. Python has come a long way to become the most popular coding language in the world. Python was just turned 30, but it still was that unknown charm and X factor, which can be clearly seen from the fact that Google users have consistently searched for Python much more than they have searched for Kim Kardashian, Donald Trump, Tom Cruise, etc. Python was been an inspiration for many other coding language um, such as Ruby, Cobra, Kobo, Aibo, CoffeeScript, EasyMaScript, Groovy, SwiftGo, Ocalm, Julie, and etc. So for our slide 5, following are the illustration of different version of Python along this timeline. So what is Python? A Python is a interpreted object-oriented high-level programming language with dynamic semantics. It's high level but in data structure combined with dynamic typing and dynamic binding make it very attractive of rapid application development, as well as for use as a scripting of Glue language to connect existing components together. Python simple, easy to learn syntax, emphasize reliability, and therefore reduce the cost of program maintenance. Python support modules and packages with encourage program modularity and code reuse. The Python interpreter and the extensive standard library are available in source of binary form without charge for all major platforms and can be freely distributed. Often programmers fall in love with Python because of the increased productivity it provides, since there is no completion step. The edit, test, debug cycle is incredibly fast. Debugging Python programs is easy. A bug or bad input will never use a segmentation fault. Instead, when the interpreter discover when the program doesn't catch the exception, the interpreter prints a stack trace of force level. Debugger allow inspection of local and global variables. Evaluation of arbitrary expressions, setting breakpoints, stepping through the code a line at the time, and so on. The debugger is writer in Python user testifying the Python effective power. On the other hand, often the quickest way to debug a program is to add a few print statements to the source. The fast edit test debug cycle makes this simple approach very effective.
Hi, I am Camille Suryaga and now I am going to explain the features of Python. Number 6, Object-Oriented Language. Python supports object-oriented language and concepts of classes and objects come into existence. It supports inheritance, polymorphism, and encapsulation, etc. The object-oriented procedure helps the programmer to write reusable code and develop applications in less code. So, it is used to structure a software program into simple reusable pieces of code blueprints, which are used to create individual instances of objects. There are many object-oriented programming language including JavaScript, C++, Java, and Python. Number 7, extensible. It implies that other languages such as C or C++ can be used to compile the code and thus it can be used further in our Python code. It converts the program into bytecode and any platform can use that bytecode. C is one of thousands of programming languages currently used. C is what is called a compiled language. This means that once you write your C program, you must run it through a C compiler to turn your program into an executable that the computer can run. Number 8, large standard library. It provides a vast range of libraries for the various fields such as machine learning, web developer, and also for the scripting. There are various machine learning libraries such as TensorFlow, Pandas, NumPy, Keras, and PyTorch, etc. Django, Flash, Pyramids are the popular framework for Python web development. Number 9, GUI programming support. Graphical user interface is used for the developing desktop application. PyQt5, Tinter, Kiwi are the libraries which are used for developing the web application. GUI programming support is Python offers multiple options for developing GUI, or it is called graphical user interface. Out of all the GUI methods, Kinter is the most commonly used method. It is a standard Python interface to the TKGUI toolkit shipped with Python. Integrated. It can be easily integrated with languages like C, C++, and Java, etc. Python runs code line by line like C, C++, and Java. It makes easy to debug the code. C++ and Java are both object programming languages. In addition, C++ is a procedural languages as well. There are some features like inheritance, polymorphisms, pointers, memory management, etc. Number 11, embeddable. The code of the other programming language can use in the Python source code. We can use Python source code in another programming language as well. It can embed other language into our code. And last, dynamic memory allocation. In Python, we don't need to specify the data type of the variable. When we assign some value to the variable, it 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 automatically allocates the memory to the variable at runtime. Python provides many useful features which make it popular and valuable from the other programming languages. It supports object-oriented programming, procedural programming, appropriate and provides dynamic memory allocation. We have listed below a few essential features. That's all.
Advantages of Python. Easy to read, learn, and write. Python is a high-level programming language that has English-like syntax. This makes it easier to read and understand the code. Python is really easy to pick up and learn. That is why a lot of people recommend Python to beginners. You need less lines of code to perform the same task as compared to other major languages like C or C++ and Java. Compared to other programming language, ang Python ay madaling matutunan kahit na hindi para sa mga programmer. It is considered beginner-friendly as it is a programming language that prioritizes readability, dahilan para mas madali itong maintindihan, matutunan at gamitin. Improved productivity. Python is a very productive language. Due to the simplicity of Python, developers can focus on solving the problem. They don't need to spend too much time in understanding the syntax or behavior of the programming language. You write less code and get more things done. Python code is shorter. Maikli lang yung oras para sa pagsulat ng mga codes, so hindi na kailangan mag-spend ng maraming oras para sa pag-intindi ng mga syntax because Python code is very readable. Mas makakapag-focus sila in solving the problem. Interpreted language. Python is an interpreted language, which means that Python directly executes the code line by line. In case of any error, it stops further execution and reports back the error which has occurred. Python shows only one error even if the program has multiple errors. This makes debugging easier. Python is called an interpreted language because it goes through an interpreter, which turns code you write into the language understood by your computer's processor. Dynamically typed. Python doesn't know the type of variable until we run the code. It automatically assigns the data type during execution. The programmer doesn't need to worry about declaring variables and their data types. Dynamic typing means that the type of variable is determined only during runtime. Python interpreter does type checking only when code runs. I repeat, only during runtime or when code runs. Free and open source. Python comes under the OSI approved open source license. This makes it free to use and distribute. You can download the source code, modify it, and even distribute your version of Python. This is useful for organizations that want to modify some specific behavior and use their version for development. Python is a free and open source programming language that is free and available for everyone to use. Vast library support. The standard library of Python is huge. You can find almost all the functions needed for your task, so you don't have to depend on external libraries. But even if you do, a Python package manager makes things easier to import to other great packages from the Python package index. It consists of over 200,000 packages. Portability. In many languages like C or C++, you need to change your code to run the program on different platforms. That is not the same with Python. You only write once and run it anywhere. Disadvantages of Python. Slow speed. We discussed above that Python is an interpreted language and dynamically typed language. The line-by-line execution of code often leads to slow execution. The dynamic nature of Python is also responsible for the slow speed of Python because it has to do the extra work while executing code. So Python is not used for purposes where speed is an important aspect for the project. Python code executes more slowly is because code is interpreted at runtime instead of being Disadvantages of Python: slow speed. We discussed above that Python is an interpreted language and dynamically typed language. The line-by-line execution of code often leads to slow execution. The dynamic nature of Python is also responsible for the slow speed of Python because it has to do the extra work while executing code. So Python is not used for purposes where speed is an important aspect of the project. Python code executes more slowly because code is interpreted at runtime instead of being compiled to native code at compile time. Interpreted code is always slower than direct machine code. Not memory efficient. To provide simplicity to the developer, Python has to do a little trade-off. The Python programming language uses a large amount of memory. This can be a disadvantage while building applications when we prefer memory optimization. Due to its simplicity, however, Python does not provide you much freedom in managing memory usage. Weak in mobile computing. Python is generally used in server-side programming. We don't get to see Python on the client side or mobile applications because of the following reasons. Python is not memory efficient and it has slow processing power as compared to other languages. Python is not a very good language for mobile development. It is seen as a weak language for mobile computing. Database access. Programming in Python is easy and stress-free, but when we are interacting with the database, it lags behind. The Python's database access layer is primitive and underdeveloped in comparison to the popular technologies like JDBC and ODBC. Huge enterprises need smooth interaction of complex legacy data, and Python is thus rarely used in enterprises. Python has limitations with database access. The Python's database access layer is found to be a bit underdeveloped and primitive. However, it cannot be applied in the enterprises that need smooth interaction of complex legacy data. Runtime errors. As we know, Python is a dynamically typed language, so the data type of a variable can change anytime. A variable containing integer number may hold a string in the future, which can lead to runtime errors. Therefore, Python programmers need to perform through testing of the applications. Because the language is dynamically typed, it requires more testing and has errors that only show up at runtime. Why your chosen data mining tool is the best among others. Python is a language embraced by a large community of coders for many reasons. Many businesses are advised to choose Python as their language for programming. That's because the language emphasizes readability and makes coding very easy. Python is also the fastest growing programming language in the world. Its high-level, interpreted, and object-oriented architecture makes it ideal for all types of software solutions. Due to its ease of learning and usage, Python codes can be easily written and executed much faster than other programming languages. As what I've said a while ago, Python is madaling matutunan at maintindihan because it is very readable, na kahit hindi mga programmer ay madali itong maintindihan at gamitin.